Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of FitRx. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Dennis. And as many of you know, I am into some anti-aging medicine and involved in a lot of anti-aging groups. And so I'm always kind of on the lookout for the newest things and trying out new things myself. And one thing that has been popping up a lot recently is a supplement called Spermidine. And so today we are going to learn all about Spermidine and how it can help with longevity and other possible health issues. And my guest is Leslie Kinney. Leslie is an autoimmune disease survivor. I'll let her tell her story. She's a health coach, and she has started the Oxford Healthspan, which is a company that has some anti-aging compounds, mainly the Spermidine that we're going to talk about today. So we're going to learn all about that, and I'll be real honest. I told her I'm not an expert on Spermidine by any means, so I'm excited to learn more about it. So, Leslie, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. So first, just kind of tell us your story and how in the world, I'm sure you'll come around to this, but tell us how all this got started for you, and then how you identified some random supplement called Spermidine and then took that, to start a company, to make Spermidine, but kind of start from the beginning, if you would.
Sure. Well, I'd say that the genesis of my story in health begins with my own poor health at age 39, which was the age at which my father died. And I was diagnosed with an incurable disease, which was lupus, as well as rheumatoid arthritis. I was trying to have a baby using IVF, and I was told I was infertile, which is not something women want to hear. Especially not from a male doctor. I know you're a male doctor, so nothing against you, but and it was when the doctor said to me that I had never heard of lupus before, and I said, "Well, so what's the cure?" And she said, "There is no cure." And I said, "But wait, I'm doing my 5th round of IVF, and I'm using donor eggs, and I need this to go really well. So you need to fix this." And she said, "Look, I'm not sure this is a good idea. And you've probably got 5 good years. And we can give you something for the rheumatoid arthritis. We can give you some Enbrel." And she did give me these syringes that I had to inject myself with. But she said, "I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do about the lupus, and not sure about having children." This was pretty show-stopping for me. And patients, I think, can do one of 2 things. They can accept what their doctors say, or they can go into denial. For better or for worse, I went into complete denial and said, "Please, can we test this again? And could it be a false positive?" She gave me the sympathetic look and said, no, but you can test again if you want." So I waxed my skis and threw the kitchen sink at my illnesses. I decided to look at it the way that a patient would look at it. What is the root cause of this? And I saw that it was inflammation. Did everything I could to get rid of inflammation by doing the zone diet, Barry Sears' anti-inflammatory zone diet. I did something experimental called intravenous immunoglobulin, which was not very well known then. Did 2 rounds of that. And I went back to the doctor a few months later, and she said, "You don't have those things I said you had." She didn't say it like that, but basically said, "You're clear. CRP's down, cytokines down, tumor necrosis factor alpha down." And that was when I realized it's not that the emperor has no clothes, but that sometimes the emperor has no clothes. As a patient, you realize that sometimes what you hear is not always the truth. and that it is up to the patient sometimes. Well, actually, in all cases, the patient must meet the doctor, right? We are there in collaboration with the doctor. We have got to do our bit. And in me deciding to do my bit, I had actually not only met my doctor, but I had cured myself. I had reversed these diseases. So fast forward many years later, I had moved to Oxford, England, which is a very small town, but full of academics, and began to meet a lot of scientists who were working on really phenomenal breakthroughs. But when I would ask, so have you got a company for it? They would say, oh, no, I don't know how to do that, or I don't want to do that, or it's too hard. And so I volunteered to raise money for them. And it was through that process that I met a really fantastic immunologist named Dr. Katja Simon, who was working with this very awkwardly named molecule called spermidine. And it is named that, yes, because it is found in huge quantities in semen, as well as breast milk. And also every baby on the planet has huge amounts of spermidine as well. And all plants make it too. So I looked into spermidine, and the more that I looked at it, the more I thought, this is actually a pretty phenomenal molecule. Not only does it help rejuvenate elderly immune cells, which was work that Katja was doing, it triggers something called autophagy. And autophagy, that is a Greek word, autophagy, which stands for self-eating. It's not cannibalization. It's actually more like self-cleaning. It's more like a self-cleaning oven. And the discovery of the mechanism of action of autophagy won the Nobel Prize in 2016 for a Japanese scientist, Yoshinori Osumi. So spermidine triggered autophagy. It helped rejuvenate elderly immune cells. It also was preferentially taken up by cardiomyocytes in the heart. It had also been used with Alzheimer's patients and with those with subjective cognitive decline to improve memory. And then there were all sorts of what I'd call beauty benefits. People were getting more hair, their nails were strengthening, their skin seemed to look better. And in some cases, it seemed to help with repigmentation as well. So this seemed like just the perfect thing, but it got even better. It inhibits 6 of the 9 hallmarks of aging. So for doctors like you who are into anti-aging, you'll know that there is a theory that there are 9 pathways down which we age. And there are some things that we know that we've heard a lot about, like stem cell dysfunction or mitochondrial dysfunction. Those are bad things. And you can see if those go wrong, that we age faster, or epigenetic changes. But also things like impaired proteostasis. So that's folding of the proteins inside the cell. And spermidine was inhibiting 6 of these things. And the only other molecule that did that was something called rapamycin, which those in the longevity field also get very excited about. And it's actually an immune suppressant, which transplant patients are given so they don't reject their donor organs. I saw everybody getting excited about rapamycin, thought, I'm never going to take that as a autoimmune survivor, but also because it reduces hippocampal volume. I don't want that. But spermidine is fantastic. Let's bring this to market. And everybody said, you can't do that because there's no patent on it. Then it just comes from food. How can you make money with something like that? And I thought, well, surely if we bring a very good quality version of it, this will be something that people will want and find benefit from. So that is really the story of how I decided to bring spermidine to market. I just felt that it could meet a lot of unmet needs. In particular, as a patient, I wanted something that wouldn't hurt anyone, but at the same time would really look at the problem of illness in a very different way. Let's just stop the aging process. Well, you can't stop it altogether,
Mhm.
but let's slow it down and thereby avoid those illnesses of aging.
So is it fair to say that spermidine is used more for people like myself, or maybe people like you who want to just kind of optimize and slow down the aging process? Or is it more for people who are maybe really sick, like what you were before with autoimmune disease, or have other diseases, and that can maybe help heal those disease, or all the above?
This is really more for optimizers. This is not going to reverse, say, hypothyroidism, even though it will help with hormones. It is not going to reverse autoimmune conditions, even though it has a powerful anti-inflammatory effects. So it is really another tool in your toolbox. And for me, it's, I still take turmeric. I take, I want to take a variety of anti-inflammatories. I'll take quercetin, for instance. I take spermidine. They're not mutually exclusive. They are synergistic. And but they're not going to reverse your disease. They will simply slow down the processes by which things like your stem cells become dysfunctional,
Mhm.
your mitochondria become dysfunctional, your telomeres become shorter.
Gotcha. Okay. So it sounds like by the time you discovered this, you were already pretty healthy. You had done the anti-inflammatory diet, kind of reverse your
Yeah.
autoimmune disease. And so
Yeah.
when you started taking spermidine personally, like
Mm.
what did you notice, and how long does that process usually take when people start taking this, and maybe what will they notice first, and then what will they
Yeah.
notice maybe kind of long term? I know that's a lot of
Mm.
questions there together, but
Sure. Well, I had actually been on a European spermidine, also derived from wheat germ, when I began this journey. And when I sourced ours, I was simply looking for a very pure source. I am that picky girlfriend who is always, oh, can I have the gluten-free version? Can I please make sure that, do you have onions? Please remove the onions. So I'm very picky. I looked for a version of spermidine, got it from Japan, was not necessarily expecting it to be so much more different from the version that I had been taking. But when I switched to ours, probably within 3 months, I noticed some very strange things happening, which were visible. And I'd say the first thing that I noticed was that my sleep got better almost immediately. And I could
hmm,
see it on my Aura ring. And we do get this from a lot of people. It's not everyone who gets this particular result, but enough people that there is something to it. And there are studies on how spermidine can actually sort of rebalance the circadian rhythm as we get older, and during the period at night when we sleep gets shorter. So sleep was one thing I noticed, and I was getting consistently 2 hours of deep sleep a night, which I thought was great because my goal had always been around 90 minutes of deep sleep a night, say 90 minutes of REM, and I was getting 2 hours, which seemed unusual. I'm 50, I'll be 57 in another couple of months.
wow.
So for a postmenopausal woman, for me, was kind of, the holy grail. The other thing I noticed was that my eyelashes got a lot longer. Now, most people are not going to care about their eyelashes getting longer, or maybe they don't care about, their hair color or their hair getting thicker or their eyebrows filling in. But um, there are people who really do correlate things like that with a feeling that they are younger. And the next thing that I noticed was actually have had some cellulite since I've been about 16 years old. And that started to reduce, which was very odd. Just sort of caught myself in a mirror one morning and thought, oh, what's going on there? That was so very odd. Now, that is due to spermidine's ability to trigger lipophagy. So that
Hmm.
is basically gobbling up of these lipids that shouldn't be, that are sort of oxidized. So spermidine triggers autophagy, that's sort of oven cleaning, mitophagy, which is mitochondrial cleaning, lipophagy, and then also virophagy, so which is with obviously viruses. And those were my immediate benefits: sleep, hair, cellulite. And I think the next one is probably in terms of just COVID. I still haven't gotten COVID. And knock on wood, I've been surrounded by people who have had COVID. So I'm probably inviting this now. But there was a study in Germany, just in a petri dish, so not in vivo, just in vitro, with spermidine and the SARS-CoV virus. And spermidine does help to try to, I guess you'd say, sequester it, to sort of engulf it, to get rid of it. So those are really the things that I personally noticed. I think that
I think you just sold a lot of women on the cellulite issue. So
it's not the be all end all.
Sure. But, yeah. You sold me a long time ago on the hair loss thing, but I'm kidding. Yeah. I think I'm way past any supplement helping me there, but
I have a YouTube channel as well, and it's somehow gotten hijacked by gray hair and hair growth and alopecia and all sorts of things. And I'd say for hair growth, one of the things that I really like is topical melatonin and platelet-rich plasma.
Yeah, we do that in our office. So.
Yeah, so I think those are really nice, and spermidine together. Nice stuff.
Interesting. Okay. So I will say, for our listeners who this is audio only, they can't see you. You said you're 57.
Yep. This summer. Yeah. In June.
And so you blew me away when you said that. I mean, you look fantastic. And so, I mean, I'm not kidding. For the people listening, I mean, you could pass for 15 years younger. So whether it's the spermidine or everything else you're doing together, I mean, you look really good. So let's go back. And I don't
dye my hair.
Good for you. Let's go back, and maybe you said some of this, but you talked about how it can help the mitochondria and things like that. But talk a little bit more about what is it like as a molecule, like where does it come from?
Sure.
Now, I guess you can get as sciencey as you want, but what is it? Where does it come from? And sure. I know you said it's found in sperm, but is it found in other natural foods or?
Yes, absolutely. So what's it, in spite of its very odd name, it is actually everywhere. It is in every plant, every animal, every person. It's in your grandmother. It is in, the taxi driver, in just everywhere. It is in extremely high quantities, as I said before, in semen, in breast milk, and in babies. Why? Because it is there to help in semen against the reactive oxygen species. When you make sperm, it is actually a high ROS event, and spermidine helps prevent some of that reactive oxygen species damaging the DNA that is being taken with the semen to hopefully the egg. And in breast milk, it is there to feed the baby, to help the baby grow. Spermidine helps cells grow. And babies have a lot because they need to grow very, very quickly. But another interesting thing about spermidine is that it downregulates a chemical called zonulin, which people who know about leaky gut will know that leaky gut, zonulin opens up the tight junctions of the lining of the gut, which is only one cell thick. So spermidine can actually help seal the immature infant gut so that it can get ready for food later.
So what is it considered? Is it considered a peptide? What is
it's a polyamine, And we manufacture it in our tissues, our gut biome, and we get it from food. So in of foods, the places that you can get it, the highest quantity, and this seems to be, some people say the highest amount is in highly concentrated wheat germ. Other people say that it's actually in natto, which is a Japanese fermented soybean. But both have it in high quantities. Japanese shiitake mushrooms have it in high quantities, peas, legumes, all of these things. Unfortunately, high lectin foods do have them. You would also find it in great quantities in cheddar cheese. Again, double-edged sword, because if you have high cholesterol and you're trying to avoid cheese, then that could be an issue. But any aged cheese is going to have it. And I think that in the carnivore world, because I do get this question from people who are autoimmune patients and on carnivore as a way to heal their bodies, and that does seem to help them, certainly at least initially. Unfortunately, there is not a lot of spermidine in meat unless you have chicken liver. So for anyone listening who is on the carnivore diet, more chicken liver would be the place you would want to try to get it.
So not beef liver, just chicken liver.
Just chicken liver. I did find that unusual. I don't understand why that is the case, but that is the case.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about dosing. So you mentioned some foods that have spermidine in them.
Yes.
So how does that compare to like the spermidine supplement that you have as far as kind of dosing, and can you take too much spermidine?
You could, too much of anything, as you know, too much water could be deadly, right? So too much of anything, especially an autophagy inducer, would not be good. You don't want over autophagy. And we just, Oxford Healthspan just sponsored a webinar with two, the leading cardiologist, one who is a specialist in autophagy and cardiology, and he was saying over autophagy is going to kill off healthy cells. So you do want to keep it within a safe range. And while the FDA has not determined what the upper range of spermidine should or ought to be, the European Union's Food Safety Authority has done so, and they have said that one should take no more than 6 milligrams of supplemental spermidine a day. The spermidine supplements on the market are generally around the 1 milligram, maybe more, a little bit more, but not over. They shouldn't be over 6, just because of that EU rule. And so far, we have not done human studies with more than 6. So until things have been proven to be safe, we're sticking to those rules for obvious safety reasons. 1 milligram is the minimum effective dose that has been shown to improve cognition in those with subjective cognitive decline. And that's why that dose was chosen. In comparison to foods, the issue with foods, as you probably know, is that you can test a plant in one place and in another place. And although they might both be shiitake mushrooms or kale, or they both might be eggs, they are not all created equal. And it really depends on provenance, on soil, and even on temperature. So for instance, with wheat germ, you wouldn't necessarily get the exact same amount of spermidine in every single crop. It would depend on quite a lot of other factors, but soil health and weather would be 2 very big ones. And the other thing is that wheat germ has polyunsaturated fatty acids. And PUFAs are very fragile, and they have these two bonds that are just looking for oxygen. They want to oxidize, and it goes rancid very, very quickly. So if you wanted to get it from, say, wheat germ, you would certainly have to have, well, we'd have to test how much was actually in that particular bushel of wheat germ and then calculate to see what it was. But you would not be able to get, say, 1 milligram with an equivalent amount of wheat germ. You would have to eat much, much more.
Okay. Is there anybody that should not take spermidine, like as a supplement? And have you seen anybody react negatively to this?
So we have seen people react negatively to the wheat germ derived spermidine.
Okay.
And those, not always, but in trying to sort of troubleshoot what's happening, it seems that these individuals are either they're undiagnosed celiac, which is obviously disastrous. They have undiagnosed SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or leaky gut, or they have sensitivity, possibly an underlying autoimmune disease, or they have an autoimmune disease and they are not, they have not really dialed in their diet and they've not gotten rid of obvious triggers like dairy and wheat. And this is one of the big reasons why I wanted to also bring out a soy and gluten-free version, which we have just done. And that particular product, Primeadine GF, is based on chlorella, Japanese shikawasa, which is a citrus from Okinawa, and turmeric. So we have two autophagy enhancers there, which is nobilitin in the shikawasa and spermidine in the chlorella, but chlorella is not an allergen. Shikawasa is not an allergen. So, for the wheat germ one, it's really the obvious issues around sensitivity to wheat and gluten or lectins, gluten being a huge lectin. With the Primeadine GF version, which is soy and gluten-free, we have not had anyone say, oh, this is a problem. I would not take more than 1 milligram at a time because sometimes it's too much, for people, but you can titrate up and listen to your body, as with all things, with food, alcohol, everything.
And this sounds like something that is more of a long-term thing. And maybe you said that, but it sounds like people aren't going to start taking it and see results like in a few days, correct? I mean, it takes a little while.
I would say 3 months, but if you have a tracker ring, like the Aura, or you have a BioStrap, you could see something in your first night. And we've certainly had people say, whoa, I could see it immediately with my deep sleep. And we were talking to a yoga guru in New York City and named Alina Brower. And she was saying that she could see it almost immediately with her sleep, which is fantastic. But we've had men and women say that. It's not always the case. There are a few people who will find that instead of it inducing sleep, it actually seems to give them energy. For those folks, they need to take it, in the morning instead.
So do most people start off taking it at night?
We suggest that people take the original Primeadine, which is the wheat germ, the highly concentrated, defatted wheat germ. We have them take that with a meal, probably last meal of the day.
Okay.
And with the Primeadine GF, the gluten and soy free one, we suggest people try that in the morning. And the reason why we sort of have it at these bookends of sleep, as it were, is because when you sleep, you're fasting and you're triggering autophagy. And so if you can then sort of extend it or enhance it, you're going to get more benefits.
Okay. So my listeners should be pretty familiar with autophagy. We've talked a lot about fasting, and so obviously autophagy is very important. Above and beyond that, if you could, because you mentioned a lot of things with mitochondrial health and all that, but if you could say above autophagy, if spermidine could do one thing that you've seen over and over again in people, what would that be?
Well, the one thing that people seem to be most excited about, this is not necessarily a health claim, is probably hair health.
Hmm.
It's considered a vanity point,
Hmm.
but people tell us a lot that this is, they see new hair growth, they see hair color coming back into their hair, they feel the texture changes. Spermidine, ours in particular, has been tested for this, will actually upregulate keratin as well as collagen. So the fact that it changes the texture of the hair isn't really surprising. It has better sheen, that kind of thing. So that is the thing that people are excited about. Really, though, what they should be excited about is their cells staying younger for longer,
Hmm.
right? Their mitochondria functioning better, because when autophagy happens, you're getting rid of poorly performing mitochondria, just like you would when you fast, right? You want to kick out the mitochondrial laggards, the cellular laggards, and replace them with nice new highly performing mitochondria and stem cells too, right? So that's what we should be excited about. But because that's really under the hood, and people can't, this isn't a caffeine product. It's not a nootropic. You're not going to take it and say, oh, I feel it.
Hmm.
It's much more subtle than that. And so with so many of the benefits under the hood, the things that people notice are really around, shinier, darker, or pigmented
Hmm.
and thicker hair, really.
Interesting. Okay. Well, very good. I'm going to switch gears just for a minute because I like
Sure.
asking a lot of my guests about kind of their daily routine, especially
Oh,
somebody like
sure.
yourself that has your story and is into kind of longevity, and especially like I mentioned, you look so much younger than you are. I'm really just interested to hear what you do. So take us through just kind of your daily regimen as far as, I mean, you don't have to go into detail, but as
Yeah,
far as
sure.
what you might eat and maybe your supplements, and you don't have to tell
Yeah,
us every single supplement, maybe
sure.
some of the highlights, and maybe what kind of exercise you do, and just kind of tell us about
Yeah,
a typical day for you, if you would.
absolutely. So in terms of the stack, as a postmenopausal woman, hormone replacement therapy is my dear friend.
Hmm.
And having talked to Dr. Dale Bredesen about how important it is for female brain health, I know it's great for bone health. I am not going to part with my HRT.
Good for you. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. That said, I also don't want my body to be making the carcinogenic version of estradiol. So I do take things like glutathione and acetylcysteine, DIM, calcium D-glucarate, to help my body detoxify. Because glutathione can actually decrease the amount of zinc and copper in the cell, I also supplement with that. B vitamins, I also love. And B5, pantothenic acid, helps with hair color too, as does Foti, which is a traditional Chinese herb. So I will add that into my morning coffee. I also add in a couple scoops of collagen, hydrolyzed collagen from happy French cows. And I will add in some medium chain triglycerides, some, as a creamer, coconut
Okay.
creamer, and then some raw cacao, which has magnesium, as well as a little bit of iron. And that's, that's a big part of it. Naturally, vitamin D. Living in a country like England, it's so far north, we don't get sunshine a lot.
Mhm.
So very, very important to make sure my D levels are optimized. And I get my blood and urine panels done every 6 months. This is my non-negotiable. Other people say, I have insurance because when the wheels fall off, I want to make sure I have something to pick, to pick the car up. And I always say, no, my insurance is that I pay every 6 months to stay healthy. so that I don't need the insurance, right?
Yeah, right.
Unless I go under a bus. And so my functional medicine doctor will tell me what things I am missing. What do I need to have? I do need thyroid hormone. I am a hypothyroid patient. So I happen to like desiccated thyroid. It's not everybody's choice, but for me, that's what works best. And then in terms of exercise, I am a huge fan of blood flow restriction.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I don't know if I guess I know you go to the gym, so I'm guessing you know that or do that.
So I just bought some blood flow restriction bands recently. I've used them, half a dozen times just on my arms. I
Yeah.
don't have any for my legs yet. We typically do CrossFit as a clinic, and I actually coach them. And then usually when we get done with the workout and I'm waiting on my wife, I'll put on my blood flow restriction bands. This is what I've been doing, and go do
Yeah.
a few sets. It's very interesting, and I find that just like doing one set, like that day or the next day, I'm kind of sore and I'm kind of feeling it.
Yeah.
So there's definitely something to it. I love everything fitness, and so I'm probably gonna get more into that. I just
Yeah.
wanted to try it out myself. So I don't hear a lot of people doing it though. So that's interesting that you're doing that.
I love it. I haven't done it, in the last week. And I don't, I don't want to be super muscular
Uh-huh.
personally, but that's just my personal choice, but I don't want to be weak.
Sure.
And so there is some definition, and
Absolutely. Yeah.
that is only from the ones I'm using are called katsu, and they're Japanese. They're invented in Japan, where they use them with both Olympic athletes to improve performance, but
Mhm.
also with elderly individuals who need rehabilitation.
Mhm.
And that is obviously a huge threat to longevity, is losing muscle.
Sure.
So
So you focus on resistance training. I mean, correct.
yes,
Good for you.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. But it's a small city, and you can walk around. You can get in, your 15,000 steps or
Mhm.
10,000 steps,
Okay.
pretty handily, just walking around town.
Yeah, good for you. And so tell us just kind of what your general kind of nutrition plan is that you do for yourself.
Well, so I do eat meat. I try to treat it more as a condiment, but protein is so important.
Mhm.
And that's why I do have those collagen protein. Um, I add collagen protein to, at least two of my drinks. That'll be 2 tablespoons each time, just because I want to make sure I maintain muscle. And I do a lot of bone broth. It's probably my favorite thing,
Okay.
and very easy to make, but also now very easily available just from
Mhm.
the local grocer. And then a lot of vegetables, and I will do a lot of I wouldn't say exactly classic stir fry. So I tend to take a lot of veg, and I will boil it first, especially if it's broccoli, because broccoli is a goitrogen, and it also has oxalates, which can lodge in the joints. And so I boil that in order to kind of get rid of those things, dump the water, and then I'll take the broccoli, I'll take green beans, I'll take, say, baby corn, shiitake mushrooms, my favorite, and I will put them in with some bone broth in a skillet, and then sort of stir fry them that way. I'm really sautéing them, but then I just have some boiled white rice, which I will have cooked earlier in the day. So that, one, there's no scramble for dinner, but also it becomes a resistant starch, and you can add MCTs, coconut oil, on top of that to actually enhance the fact that you making it a resistant starch. Because I'm half Chinese, this
Really?
is, yeah. I, so I this is sort of my genetic inheritance,
Mm.
and I do very well with that. I've had my
Mhm.
gut biome.
Mhm.
I've done various tests. I did a project on my own gut biome. I have the gut biome of a typical Japanese person.
Interesting. Okay.
I'm made to eat seaweed,
Okay.
Rice seems to not be so much of a problem for me, but I'm very mindful
Hmm.
of not having too much of it, but having rice with my vegetables as
Hmm.
opposed to vegetables with my rice, if that makes
Interesting.
sense.
Okay. All right. Well, very good. Well, let me jump back to the spermidine.
Yeah.
I just have a couple more questions. And so I guess people are probably asking if I want all the benefits of this, is this something that I need to be on like the rest of my life? Do most people take it for 3 months, 6 months, and then take a break from it? What kind of what's the best way to do that?
Well, the most important thing is to get more spermidine into your life. Now, you can, as I said, you can get it from certain plants in higher quantities. So I would encourage everyone to do that. Um, if you are not able to do that, and also if you have perhaps had too many broad spectrum antibiotics and therefore your gut, there's certain strains of bacteria that manufacture spermidine. So if you've had too many of those broad spectrum antibiotics, such that your gut's ability to manufacture it is also impaired, then topping up with a supplement just to make sure you're getting the minimum effective dose would be a good thing. And we also put a prebiotic into our product, into the wheat germ, the defatted wheat germ one, just to selectively feed those strains of bacteria that manufacture spermidine. So definitely, there are going to be people who will say, I want to kickstart this. And you could do that. You could, just as a way to, okay, let me see what the benefits are. Let me feel it. And then perhaps once you feel it, you then move over to, I'm just going to get more of these good foods into my diet. And I'm going to get more fiber into my diet to feed the gut bacteria that manufacture it. But we do find that, especially those people who find benefit to sleep, they don't want to go off of it. And even with the gluten-free product, my team was saying, okay, so are you going to switch? And I was just like, I'm not going off of this one.
Mm-hmm.
No, because I like the benefits to hair. I like the benefits on the cellulite. This particular one I know works. I'm not switching. So instead I'm adding on and I'm taking them both, but I'm not getting rid of that one. So we do find people can be reluctant to go off. But I think really bottom line, what you want, make sure you get it into your diet. You want autophagy to be happening. Men can do this with fasting. For women, it is a different situation. And I was speaking to Dr. Junichi Sadashima at Rutgers University Medical Center just this past Monday about the differences between men and women fasting. And he said, oh, there's a big difference between the two. But sadly, he didn't say it on our webcast, but there is a big difference in mice when the mice fast, between male and female mice, and in humans, because for women, fasting all the time, it will down regulate your metabolism. Because the thyroid in its great wisdom will say, oh, we're in a famine, we need to survive, so let's down regulate metabolism. So it can bite you in the backside if you are a woman and you are fasting all the time. Then you could take spermidine and use that instead. You're not restricting the calories in a way that is going to make your body feel like you're in a famine state, but you're still able to trigger autophagy.
So there's no concern with somebody like myself who does occasional intermittent fasting, or I fast for a day. And if I were taking spermidine, I mean, there's not going to be any concern of too much autophagy or anything like that, correct?
No, it would enhance your particular effect. Of course, you don't want to fast 365 days a year,
Sure.
right?
Right.
So that's not good. But I think you'll be listening to your body. You're doing
Sure.
this
Yeah.
it's intermittent for a reason, right?
Yeah. Do you know any kids or teenagers that take this? Can they benefit from this? And then also, I'm just curious about like men and I mean, because you mentioned like hair growth and that kind of stuff, but
Mhm.
does, like, I don't know if you're married, but does your husband or some men that that take this, like, what main benefit have they received from this?
So first to the question regarding those who are younger. To be really honest, young people don't need to take this
Yeah.
unless they are really biologically prematurely aged.
Mm,
And their tissues and their gut biome should be capable of manufacturing this. As I said, when we're infants, that is the time of our life when we have the highest amount of spermidine. Things, as you know, with a lot of hormones, whether it's production of thyroid, melatonin, testosterone, progesterone, estrogen, these things all kind of, they start going downhill at a certain point in
sure.
time. Spermidine would be similar to those things, and
Gotcha.
you'd
Okay.
you'd find most benefit if you were, say, over the age of 45. Not to say that people who are younger have not found benefit. We have had people say that they have found benefit, but the majority of people, I feel, would be older,
Yeah, sure.
and they will really notice it. Now, in terms of men, in particular, we've had the feedback we've had for men has been around sleep. It has
Mm,
been around firmer erections. It has been around better hormone profile.
mm,
So we looked into that, and there have been studies done. In addition to spermidine, we also have the delightfully named spermine and putrescine in this product because that's how they come in nature. They're part of a polyamine feedback loop. And there is a study on these three polyamines showing that they will decrease cortisol in men and raise testosterone. I'm just trying to remember the exact amount by which they increase testosterone, but it was a significant amount. I think it was around 50. Well, I'd better not say, as I don't have the notes right in front of me. It was statistically significant. I want to say 56%, but don't hold me to that. And that was after 30 days. The amount they were taking was 5 milligrams, I think. And but that was food-derived spermidine, where you have all three of those polyamines together. You can't just take, say, synthetic spermidine to get that result. Men also say that they notice their hair, the pigment coming back, and I think that is because their hair tends to be closer cropped. So the new growth comes in and you see the change faster. Whereas with women, it's a little bit, their hair is
mm,
longer, different strands are covering up other, say, progress, as it were.
mm,
And we have one man who is 94, and he actually he's lost all the hair on top of his head, but he's now got more,
mm,
such that he has a comb over, which he seems pleased with. But he's getting, where he has hair, he's getting dark, he's getting black hair back in. That was his original hair color.
mm.
I think he said it's been 50 years since he's not had white hair. And now
Interesting.
he's primarily still white,
Mhm,
but he has some where melanogenesis has happened.
mm,
And we do know that spermidine helps with epithelial stem cells in the hair follicle. It does keep the hair in the growth phase or the anagen phase for longer. And that will happen. That process begins as soon as 6 days after taking it. You might not notice it, but in studies with human hair follicles, once they have been exposed to spermidine for 6 days, 26% more of the follicles will go into the growth phase than before.
okay. Well, very nice. So your company is Oxford Healthspan.
Correct?
And that's where the listeners, if they want to try this out, can get your spermidine product. which is called Primeadine. Correct?
Primeadine or Primeadine.
Okay.
But I named it Primeadine partly so that my mother would be spared having to say the word Spermidine, and also because I wanted her to feel like that it would put her back into the new prime of life.
Fair enough. All right. So people can go to oxfordhealthspan.com.
Correct.
Find it there. And I believe y'all are giving our listeners a discount if they will type in FitRx. That you can get a discount on that. So we appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up, before I ask that question, anything else that you want to throw out there that I didn't ask? Or
oh gosh. I think you did a very good job.
Okay, well, very good. So I always wrap up my podcast by asking my guests if they could give us one health tip that could make us healthier today. What would you say to that?
I'm a big fan of N-acetylcysteine, and I think it's such an unsung hero because it's a precursor to glutathione, and so much of us have stress, and it's really good with reactive oxygen species. So yeah, if you can find NAC, we can get it easily here in the United Kingdom.
Yeah. My wife takes that. I don't take that in my typical regimen. I don't know why. I mean, I know that it's beneficial. There's just so many things out there that are beneficial. It's you got to sometimes kind of pick your poison a little bit.
Yeah,
you can go crazy on supplements, but no, NAC's a good one. So, but very good. I thought you were going to say Spermidine. So
well, no, of course I thought I had to say something other than Spermidine. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of choices. Vitamin D is another favorite of mine.
That's a big one of mine. I harp on that a lot. Yeah. So my listeners have probably heard that ad nauseum, but yeah, I preach vitamin D all the time. So, well, very good. Well, okay. So Miss Leslie Kinney, we certainly appreciate your time and expertise on this very interesting product here called Spermidine. So, and appreciate everybody listening, and we will talk to you next time.
Thank you.